reach, reach, reach. Press, rack it. Good. Good work, dude. Feel better?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I don't believe you. Yeah, you're gonna feel like shit as long as it looks better, that's okay. Now here's the thing, right? There is this initial period where people kind of negotiate with themselves in their head after they learn how to set up like this. We're like, that really hurts, it sucks, I don't want to keep doing it. And the thing is, it's a voluntary program. Like, you don't have to come to the gym at all. Yeah. But if you want to get good at bench pressing, this is the way to do it. I've worked with some of the best bench pressers in the world, and this is a major difference. This could be, you know, I've seen guys go from 500 to 585 in a short period of time, you know, with this type of bench pressing. So it's really a matter of, you have to treat the bench press like a mechanical system. And we train the system of the press. We don't just train the muscles that are involved, right? So when people talk about leg drive, I think leg drive is maybe one of the most misunderstood aspects of the bench press. As though it's this thing that you can just turn on. Like you hear the press command, oh, leg drive, turn it on. And I do see some people that operate that way where they actually like will kick with their legs. Very rarely is this effective. In my opinion, to have this system pre-tensed, so in other words, you're already driven back, everything's already tight. When that bench hits you, when that bar hits you, and it's time for the reversal, as soon as you go to press, it's like you're pressing off of a trampoline, you know? So all that kinetic energy from the descent is still live in the mechanical system. You still have elastic potential energy even during the pause that gets stored as, right? So a little bit of physics there. That's the reason if you get caught up on a call for a bench press on a press command for like maybe say 2 seconds or more, you won't get a lift that you might have got otherwise. And the reason for that is that kinetic energy dissipates, okay? So it kind of leaks out and leaves. So understanding that, we want to stay as tight as possible because in order to transfer that kinetic energy back and forth, we need a really tight mechanical system. So we want to stay driven and we want to keep everything tight, right? So when you see somebody that's really good at bench press, and they go to press, the knees fire back, right? So the feet don't shoot down, right? It's not that you're driving down. We're really never driving down, except for to get those heels down or to get into position initially. We're driving back. So if there were arrows on the ground, they'd be pointing out that way for our feet. You don't necessarily have to. You can go straight forward. That depends on the nature of the hip, which we don't know. I don't have an MRI machine, so I can't see. So you know what's comfortable, right? Yeah. So as long as you're going this way, I wouldn't go that way, obviously, but other than that, it's going to end up in the center and transfer back to the bar, okay? So with that in mind, let's give it a go here. I'll get behind you. So we're going to scoot back to me. A little more. Don't be scared to scoot back. You can go nice and far and sit on your butt. That way there's no rush. Okay? Your feet are where you want, good. And now remember, if you need to drag your feet to get your heels down, that's fine, but we don't want to pick them up because when we pick them up, it would lose tension. We need that tension, good. Want that nice tensor mechanical system, like I said. So brace, drive back, right? Up and out. Now reach. Reach, good. Descend. Press. Reach. Good. Press. Reach. Good. Press. Reach. See how he's reaching all from the chest, all from the upper? Rack it, that's good. Beautiful work. I think we throw a little more on, man. What do you think? All right. Take your time. You don't have to rush through these either.
My lower back is like...
Yeah, it feels good, huh? Do you want to roll out or anything?
Nah, I'll be all right. I'm sure
Yeah, you are. You're young. Now's the time to do this. So bracing is going to help with that too, okay? Because like I was saying, what we don't want is what you see a lot of like fit chicks on Instagram doing, where they have an insane amount of lumbar extension. So what happens then is you're almost guaranteed there's no way that energy could transfer from your legs to the bar, right? Because how could it? Is it going to go up and then back down? It doesn't work that way. It goes up into space. So what we want is an arm that's essentially firing that energy right at the bar, right? So that arm is coming in the form of basically from your thoracic spine down. So we want the lumbar to be somewhat neutral. We would like the pelvis to be somewhat neutral and to stay driven. So we're going to be in thoracic extension so that the scaps can move the way they need to throughout the press. But we don't want a ton of lumbar extension, and that's what's going to cause more and more discomfort, especially in torques the SI joint and so forth, right? So that lower back stuff. But remember, staying braced. A good cue for bracing, I think, on the bench press is think about somebody pulling the sides of your ribs close to your pelvis, right?
Yeah. I just
So you're just pulling them down.
Punch me in my stomach.
That's a good way to think of it too. But if you that is definitely, no doubt, bracing for impact is a good way to do it. But if you want to actually cue it like intentionally, think about pulling those ribs, reducing, because what that's doing is actually loading those discs so they don't move one direction or the other, right? So the thoracic, which is in extension, that's not part of what's bracing. So we're going to stay driven back. That's going to keep that tight, and we're going to stay braced. That's going to keep that arm stiff so that we can transfer the energy to and from your legs, to and from the floor. Okay? So go ahead. Take your time. Remember, even based on the knurling. So you're at the pinkies on the ring grip. Is that typically where you're at?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good grip. It looks good for you. So you scoot back. Okay. Good. Now drag those feet. Heels down. Good. Now, it's like you're driving your feet out towards me, remember? Okay, and driving back to get on those traps. Up and out. Do you need a handout? No? Okay. Reach. Head down. Reach. Press. Dry that head. Reach hard and dry the head. Good. Reach hard and dry the head. Good. Reach. Rack it. Now, your head's starting to come up, and here's why. Now, don't even, or you can reset. Let's reset your whole deal. I want you to do another setup again right now, and I'll show you what's happening there. Okay? Typically, when someone can't keep their head down, they're not high enough on the traps. So, in other words, you're making contact maybe here, right? So, what happens is you flatten out on the scaps. We don't want that, because then the weight is above you, and the weight is pinning these scaps between, so you're essentially, your scaps are pinned between the pad and the weight. Right? So we want to stay higher towards the top of the scaps. So we want to be up on the traps. So try that again. It's the same.
Can I bring my feet farther back?
No, I think your feet are fine. I don't think that's really as much of an issue. But the driving back is the issue and where you're making contact. So I think it's a matter of walking the scaps down a little bit more, which I'll show you how to do that right now. Go ahead. A little more. Good. Cool. So excellent. Now, get your feet right first before we do anything else. Good, that's fine. Now, before you start driving back, we're gonna walk these scaps. So go ahead, walk them down more, one at a time. You can get more than that. There you go, now get the other one that low. Come on, you can do it. Good, are you high on your traps?
Yeah.
When you drive back now, you should be super high on those traps. Good, you are, you're higher than you were. Up and out, stay driven. Now reach, good. Dry that head. Look at the ceiling and dry and reach. Reach with your chest. Get your chest as high as you can. Reach, reach, reach. Good. Press. Good. Reach, reach, reach. Press. Reach. Press. Good. Reach, reach, reach. Press. Rack it. Good. Good work, dude. Feel better?
Yeah. I guess.
I was gonna say, I don't believe you.
The bench feels better. I feel like shit.
Yeah, you're gonna feel like shit as long as it looks better. That's okay. And honestly, there is a conditioning component to this.
Yeah.
Getting in this position, like I said, very unnatural position. When are you doing a maximum static contraction in a ton of thoracic extension in your normal life? It's never gonna happen. When are you going to try to press something off of you? Like what, when a boulder falls on you or something? It's just not something that happens. But deadlift, like we pick stuff up, it's the most basic human task. Squatting. Squat around a campfire. Squat to take a dump. These are basic human movements, right? Picking stuff up off the ground, again, basic human movement. Doing a pull-up, climbing up on things. These are stuff we're meant to do. This is not something that necessarily human beings were ever really designed to do. So we figured out how to maximize it. I mean, look at it like this. You can last a really long time like this. So I've been myself, think of it this way. I'm not the best bench presser in the world. Definitely not the strongest, but I've been pressing over 500 pounds for a very long time, creeping on 20 years, you know, with human shoulders. And they still work to some degree, not perfectly. But, you know, to be able to hold it together like that, that's what a career in the sport of powerlifting is. It should be 20 years, not 3 years, you know? So when you think about being 18 years old, if I could go back to my 18-year-old self, that would be one of the main things that I talk about is like, make sure shoulder health, that should be a priority. These are things that they're not expendable. Hip health, shoulder health, back health, you know? So getting into the best mechanical positions to lift this weight, not just in terms of optimizing the mechanics so you can lift the most weight, but also in a way that's protective. So there has to be some kind of balance between those two things. And I think we have it here with this. And that's another important point. So whenever you make an adjustment in training, right, to your technique, to the way you're setting up, so forth, stuff like that, like say, for example, your bench press, I'm assuming that this is different than you were doing before. Yeah, it's pretty substantially, right? So anytime you're gonna make a substantial difference in the way that, in the technique that you're using, you don't wanna max. You don't wanna max for a little bit. I would say stick with whatever max you were using, right, for your training max, but maybe stay around 70% and focus on doing 5 sets of 3. And instead of making the priority lifting the most weight for a little bit, make the priority meeting your volume requirements with perfect reps. So in other words, video everything you're doing, watch what you're doing, reinforce these cues that we're going over. So what we got so far, the heels to traps cue, right? Where you get those heels down and you're up on your traps and you're driving back. So we'll call that heels to traps, driving back, right? So kind of the feet are going that direction, pushing yourself back so we can stay high on the traps. And that gives us the platform, which allows us to hit that second cue once the bar's out of the rack, which is reaching with the chest. So that's what that looks like, the reaching cue, right?
That one's getting a little bit more easier.
Well, you're gonna, see, this is something that's gonna improve over time. Getting into that position's tough. Kind of like before when I was talking about, when I was beating up old boy on the other one, about packing the scaps, right? And I'm like showing visually what packing the scaps is, right? It's the same thing with reaching. It also involves the scaps, right? So why can I do that much where it's that visible when I do it? Because I've done it 80 million fucking times. And your thoracic extension, your mobility will improve. Your scapular mobility will improve. You'll be able to reach better, okay? All these things are gonna become more natural, and not only that, they're not gonna be as painful. In the beginning, it sucks. It's like, this is a horrible, unnatural position to be in. Eventually, that becomes a natural position, and that's where we want to be. That's where magic happens. All right. Give it another go. Let's do one more. Good, so what are we gonna do? We're gonna walk through each step here. You tell me what you're doing.
I'm gonna sit back on my ass.
Yeah, you're sitting back on your ass, that's right.
And I'm gonna pull my cervical brace. And
brace, right. You gotta brace first. Cue the glutes. Now we're gonna slide forward. Good. Okay, drive those, good. So you got your heels in a decent position. Now the next step is gonna be getting those scaps a lot closer to your butt without moving your butt down the pad. So walk them and use the bar. You can use the bar to cheat yourself, kind of walk a little more. I know it sucks, it's making it hurt more each time you do that, but you gotta just suck it up and do it. Good. Okay, now you're high on your traps. You think about almost touching the back of your neck, so kind of bury your chin a little bit. Now drive back. Good. Now, from this position, actually, you gotta get down a little bit lower on that pad. So go ahead, walk those scaps closer. More. Keep walking them down. Other side too. Get that one down a little lower. Good. I'm gonna help you. I got your back, dude. This will get better and better. Good. Now you're nice and high on the traps. Bury that neck into the pad. Drive those heels and go back. Drive back. Good. Drive back, up and out. Reach, reach, good. Press. You gotta reach, get up on them traps, drive back. Good. Stay driven back. It's easy to go to sleep on the driving back part, right? Good, stay driven back, good. You stay driven back, you won't lose that neck. Press, rack it. Good work, dude.
Oh, fuck.
You're gonna make it, you're gonna make it.
Yeah.
All right, so Trajan and I just went over the setup for bench press. Some main things, we're getting high on the traps first. And the way we're doing that is after sliding into position, we're using the heels to traps and driving back cue, right? So he's trying to try and get all the pressure onto the top of his traps, as high on his traps as possible, drive those heels down, and then drive back. So in other words, like he's trying to slide that whole bench press back. And that was the heels to traps cue. That's the first part. Yeah, it's very important that you remain driven. When using that cue, you remain driven back from before we unrack until the bar is no longer in play. So in other words, when the bar is unracked, you're driving back, and you're not gonna stop driving back until the bar is back in the rack. The second cue, the second part of this is just as crucial, and it won't work correctly if the first part's not set up correctly. So after he's driven back and he's unracked, he's nice and high on his traps, that sets him up to do the reaching cue. So reaching for the bar. So like we were talking about, reaching, right? That's gonna put him in a great position. Not only is it gonna reduce the distance the bar has to travel, but it's gonna keep him in thoracic extension and create a little pocket where the scaps can move the way they need to healthily throughout the press, okay? So that's gonna help you maintain healthy shoulders. Staying tensored, staying driven back is gonna give us a nice tight mechanical system for the bench press. That's gonna allow good transfer of kinetic energy to and from the floor, okay? That's how leg drive really works. So with that in mind, we'll move on and do the rest of the stuff, the MSMs. We want to get as much carryover as we possibly can from a mechanically similar movement to the main movement. And in order to do that with bench press, right, we have to exactly mimic that bar path. We have to exactly mimic that setup, the mechanical system of the bench press. We still need to stay tight. So this is a version of floor press that allows us to still train the whole system and incorporate leg drive.